back to Dare to Be Different. Assalamu alaikum, my sisters. As you already know, I am coming with that exclusiveness. I am coming and showing up as my true, authentic self. What better way to show up being real, being raw, and being just you? Dare to Be Different is only here to help you elevate, help you reach that next level, help you reach your goals, help you change your mind and change your perspective. Dare to Be Different is here for you. If you ever felt like you were different all of your life, if you ever felt I am not just the same as everyone else, then Dare to Be Different is for you. My story, my testimony, I just hope that it reached you. I hope that it sparked something inside of you to want better, to change, and to ultimately submit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, we are here to worship Allah. We are here to live out a purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, self-discovery, spiritual journey is something you need to embark on. Everyone has a time when it's time for you to wake up spiritually, consciously. And my time has came for me. My appointed time has came for me in the year of 2021. The year of 2021 is when Allah supernaturally woke me spiritually and consciously because I was spiritually asleep. Yes, our spirit that dwells inside of us could be asleep. I don't know no better way to explain it, but that's what is going on. That is the reality. A lot of people are in a deep sleep consciously. And our spirit has to be awakened. And the only one that can awaken our spirit that is sleeping is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because prior to my appointed time of me waking up and coming into realization, as you already know, I have been living in a complete delusion, deceit. Shaitan, the devil, has had a strong hold on me. I was chained. I did not realize that Shaitan, the devil, was using me. I did not realize who Shaitan, the devil, was, period. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or any religion at all. I grew up just living freely, doing whatever. Was not taught religious beliefs. In my opinion, now listen, you know I like to state facts rather than opinion, but this is a strong opinion of mine that I really feel is necessary. It's very important to introduce your child or introduce anyone around you to religious beliefs, into some sort of essence that's bigger than you. If you know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, which is God, you are to share the goodness of Allah. You are to embrace Allah to everyone around you, especially if He has shown up in your life supernaturally in ways that you could never had fathomed. And that's what He did in my life. Because prior to 2021, I was living completely wrong. I was living very destructive. I was living dangerously, unaware of my actions, my behaviors, because I had a veil over my eyes that kept me from seeing the reality. And the reality is we are our worst enemy. We do not understand that we have adapted, accustomed to behaviors that is just negative, that is just destructive. And I was living a destructive life. I was even putting my children in harm's way a few times. I used to drink a lot. You could probably have called me an alcoholic in my past life. I used to smoke a lot, only weed. And it was just consuming my life. I allowed it to consume me. I allowed my bad habits to have full control over me. It's important that we have priorities set in place and we have a strong mind about everything that we do in this dunya, because it can have an effect on us, and not only on ourselves but on those around us, and we can put people in harm's way. And that's what I did. I used to be in a relationship as well that was just no good for me. And I know I've stated this before, and I'm not here to use my platform to bash no one, but that person is a part of my testimony. That person is a part of my story. As I've stated before in previous episode, and I'm stating it again, we can end up being in a relationship with the wrong person. That person can either uplift you positively or can drain you negatively. And I'm not saying that person is all the blame. We have to take accountability for our own actions as well. I've been betrayed before. I've been left in the past before. I'm talking about left stranded. There was a situation that was supposed to wake me up again, where I went out of town with this person with my children. This person, you know exactly who you are. This person ended up leaving me in a community I had no knowledge of. Leaving me in a community that I just did not know my surroundings, my whereabouts, or anything. Left me out there to fend for myself because we got into an argument prior to me leaving, being left. That's when I recognized the betrayal. And this was leading up to my time of being awakened spiritually. It was just time for me to wake up because I constantly was just doing things. I was constantly in situations that was just disrespectful to me. I've allowed people to disrespect me. I've allowed a person to manipulate me because I didn't use my own mind. Our mind has to be much stronger than what we're going through, than what we do in general. Listen, ladies, we have to make sure we're protecting ourselves, protecting our environment, protecting what we have far as dignity. Respect goes a very long way. So prior to 2021, I was leading myself to destruction. Countless and countless of times, I was just doing things out of ignorance. And so when the year 2021 came, I felt this supernatural power bestowed on me to where I was being delivered. It felt like something lifted off my eyes to where I was able to really see reality for what it really was. I was able to see clearly that year. It was the appointed time. Everyone has an appointed time where something happens in your life, where something shifts in your life, in your mind, perspective, and Allah will wake you up. Allah sat me down when I gave up everything. He sat me down after I was supernaturally delivered and supernaturally awakened by the power of Allah. Leading to this point, I felt mentally drained. I was dealing with things silently. I was dealing with the relationship even when I was betrayed and left stranded by this person. I was ignorant enough and dumb enough to continue to deal with this person. I don't know exactly what it was or why I continued to just degrade myself this way, to disrespect myself this way. It was really beyond me. I was really sleeping. Consciously, spiritually. My mind was just not there. I don't know who I was. I don't know who she was back then. But I've always been myself. I just didn't have a mind of my own. And I didn't take care of my priorities like I do now. So when it was time for me to wake up in 2021 of April, he sat me down. Allah sat me all the way down. It was time for me to reshift my focus onto him. As I've stated before, I've always had faith. I've always had belief in Allah. Allah means God. I used to call on him, not knowing exactly who he was in my time of my need, but I still was being ignorant. I still was doing things. I was just caught up in this dunya so much that I was just not behaving. We all live and we learn. No one's perfect, but everyone goes through phases in their lives. Everyone goes through experiences in their life. Everyone to play the fool before. We all done fell victim to certain things and put up with certain toxic behaviors. Everyone has been in a toxic relationship. And if you have not been in a toxic relationship, you are blessed. But in those relationships is a lesson being taught. Reality is there. A lesson is being taught for yourself or the other person. But for me, this is my story. This is my testimony. So it was a lesson for me. So with that being said, I ended up going through a transformation that whole summer. Y'all listen, your girl was on YouTube. I was looking up on how to submit myself to Allah on YouTube because I've never done these things before. I don't know what's going on, but what I do know, divinely things was happening. I was doing things not on my own, but Allah was orchestrating me to do certain things and was walking me through a journey that I did not know was happening, but I knew something was happening. Like I said, before I went on and moved to Texas in September, and I thought that I should have gotten baptized because I thought that was the process. And I ended up getting here to Texas. I was having nothing but signs. I didn't know nothing about Islam. I've never seen a Muslim woman, let alone a Muslim man. I didn't know what nothing was. I had no knowledge of any religion, let alone did I know who Jesus Christ, peace and blessings be upon him, was. As I've stated before, when I read the Bible for myself, it's very self-explanatory, and we have to be very careful how we interpret things. Everyone interprets scriptures, words, books, people differently. And some people take things out of context and feed it to people that is not right. So when I read the Bible for myself, because I felt prompted to do so when I first ordered and purchased my Bible on Amazon that summer, and I read majority of the pages. It's a really great book, don't get me wrong. I definitely had questions about some of the context I was reading throughout the journey. I get to Texas. I ended up in a homeless shelter with my children. It was the hardest thing ever. I did come across the first sign of Islam along the journey. A Muslim woman, she was fully covered from head to toe. Me and my children was staying at a hotel, and I ordered us some dinner, Olive Garden, I remember. I ended up walking with my children to go pick up our order. There was this lady that came across on my pathway and met up with me in an intersection of a roadway. She was fully covered from head to toe, garment, all black. I've never seen it before. I was stunned. It almost made me nervous a little bit, but I felt comfortable walking with her. I don't know if Allah orchestrated for this to happen or if it was divinely. It felt like an angel was walking with me and my children when we crossed the intersection. Because the lady was coming from one direction and she met up with me and my children at the same exact time. She was power walking, y'all. And I looked at her. She didn't look at me. We just walked together. It had to be an angel in human form. It had to be. Y'all, I'm not crazy. These are the things that pop up in my lifetime, along my journey, in my pathway. That was the first sign of Islam. I probably had other signs prior to me even starting my journey, but I didn't really pay attention because I was asleep. But when I saw her, y'all, I was just looking at her up and down. And my kids was just minding their own business. But I was just looking at her in this daze. I was stunned. She went one way, I went another. She had on all black, full garment. Back then, I didn't know it was called the abaya and a niqab. It's a face veil. And her hijab is connected to her body garments. And she went one way, we went another. That was the very first sign along my journey when I first got to Texas of Islam and Allah leading me to Islam. Despite me reading the Bible, despite me feeling the need to get baptized before I even came to Texas, that was the first sign, but it didn't dawn on me. I continued on down the road when my children left to come back to Indiana. Of course, it was very hard. I had to sacrifice because I was going to be going through things in my life to teach me lessons. Allah has to separate us from things, people, so that we don't be distracted. I'm not saying my children is a distraction, but I did in the past put them in harm's way. So I had to be taught lessons about cherishing those around me, not taking things for granted, and just overall lessons had to be taught when they left. That was the hardest thing for me to do, was allow my children to leave. And it has been 3 years since I have reunited with them. It is hard, still to this day. Y'all, I cried so many tears. Every night, I had to come to terms of detaching eventually emotionally, because a lot of us as parents were emotionally invested in our children. Not everybody can separate from their children and just leave them for a period of time. But sometimes in our lives, we have to sacrifice. And that is a part of the sacrifice when you decide to submit yourself to Allah. Everything that you have in your life or obtain will be separated. You have to let it go. And that could result in your children. It all depends on the story, the purpose. Scratch the purpose, but the plans, the journey, because my children is a part of my purpose. But I had to be separated and isolated, be put by myself to gain clarity, to gain closeness to the Creator, to be revealed who I am, who Allah is, to tackle some things within inside myself. Because I am my own worst enemy. I was. But still, to this day, I have to continue to work so that I don't be in the way of my own blessings. My children are going to be moving out here soon, shortly. When I separated from them, that was the hardest thing for me to do. As I've expressed before, I cried every single day. It was hard. Never would have imagined that I would be in a place where I'm by myself. In the past, yes, I did put them in harm's way. And now I cherish my children and I see things from a different perspective. I'm able to see my children as well for who they are. Because when we're so emotionally invested in our children, sometimes we're blinded to who they really are, and that's not okay. Along the way, after that separation has happened, I continued on. I did not resonate with that church. I did get baptized in that church, but I believe Allah was showing something. Folks in that church was telling me, Allah don't have you on a journey without being baptized. The spirit of Allah does not show you things or navigate you without being baptized. This is the stuff that I was receiving from those folks in the church. And I was just looking while I continued my journey and I didn't have to get baptized. Allah saved me and I didn't have to get baptized. My journey was still going, baptized or not, after submission. So that whole scenario was incorrect, which I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just saying this is what I was receiving. So I ended up going ahead and getting baptized that day. After I was expressing to the church, I stood up and I expressed to them, I was able to go on my journey without being baptized. So I don't know what y'all saying, pretty much, in so many words, because I didn't get baptized and I've come this far in my journey without being baptized, seeing blessings, seeing Allah move in my life, was delivered. You see what I'm saying? So for them to say that, I was just not understanding where they was coming from with that. But I did go ahead and get baptized at that church. A part of being baptized at a church, when you become a Christian, you say, is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? You're supposed to confess that, which I did confess that, right? But it still didn't resonate with me. I was just like, all right, it's still a blessing to go that route. It's still a blessing to be in a church, to worship that way. If that resonates with you, if that's the pathway Allah has placed you on, it's a blessing. But Allah didn't place me on that pathway. He took me along that pathway, but that's not where I was ending. That's not where I was entering into. If that makes sense to you, whoever is listening. And I'm trying to make sense of everything to what has happened in my life along the journey. That was not the pathway that I was supposed to be on. I ended up on the pathway of entering into Islam, which still correlates and ties in together in worshiping the one true creator, the one Allah. We just worship in a different way. I'm just saying that was just not the pathway that I was supposed to be on. Allah places people on a pathway to become a Christian. Allah places people on a pathway to become a Muslim. That was the pathway for me. So I continued on. I ended up not going back to that church. I completely still studied the Bible. I read the Bible, and I still developed more signs leading me to Islam. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to be saved in general. It's a blessing to be this close to Allah. I've never felt this closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since being a Muslim. I have to take my time unpacking my story. I can't rush this process of me telling my testimony because my testimony is real. I got another sign. I remember driving. I was driving. Of course, when he used that woman who was fully covered from head to toe, face and all, That was the first sign for Allah reaching out to me, showing me how He wants me to dress. Not really dawning on me though at that moment. So I get another sign. I was driving and I looked up. Of course, everything is divinely timing. Of course, angels, ancestors, they help navigate. I turned my head and I looked up. There was this billboard with a lady with her hijab. And it said, y'all, Islam. I was just looking like, what is that? It still didn't dawn on me. I don't know nothing about Islam, but it said Islam. And it had a lady with her head covered. And I continued to drive. But I was supposed to see that billboard. I was supposed to see that sign because that sign was for me. And it just didn't dawn on me. But I felt in my spirit that Allah was transforming me on my outer appearance. I felt it in my spirit that Allah wanted me to begin covering my head. So at that moment, when I felt this revelation in my spirit, when I felt this download of Allah telling me to start to cover my head, I wrestled with it for a little bit, but not too much. Because what Allah says, it goes. Period. So I began to look up on YouTube how to wrap my hair. Because at first I was wearing a hair wrap to the back. And it was like in a bun type of thing. Allah was like, no, wrap it like this. A hijab style. So I looked it up. And once I started looking it up and learning how to wear a hijab and wrap my hair in a hijab form, that's when that journey began for me to start wearing a hijab. That's when I really started to see more signs of Islam. My story of how I came into Islam through signs, symbols, people coming on my pathway to show me the way to Islam. I ended up taking my Shahada the year of 2022, but before that year, I got clear confirmation because I was going back to Indiana to visit. And when I got to Indiana, I was going to take my Shahada. I was dancing around with it. I wasn't too for sure. Another lady I crossed paths with at a bank, she mentioned something about, I'm going to take my Shahada. It was something she said because she was a Muslim woman. And I asked her, why don't you cover your hair if that's what, it says in the Quran? I don't even remember how that even came about, but that's a story itself as well. But I don't remember. It's so much that has happened along my journey that has led me up to being in Islam and growing and getting stronger in strength spiritually in Islam and learning the prayers. That's a story itself, y'all. A beautiful journey I have been on and I'm on right now. And I am much, much more closer to Allah today. He was pulling me to Islam. He was pulling me to prayer. He was pulling me to worship. I felt the tug. I felt the pull because for a year straight, almost a year, I was not praying the way I'm supposed to pray as a Muslim. And I felt Allah pulling me because I had just began. I had took my Shahada in the year 2022. When I got to Indiana, got confirmation before I even got to Indiana that this is the path, this is the way, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I got clear confirmation. So I got to Indiana. There was a mosque, y'all. He took me back to Indiana. There was a mosque right there around the corner from where I used to live. Never seen this mosque before. Never paid attention. Because I don't know nothing about Islam. I've never heard the name. I went to that mosque and I took my Shahada and the journey began again. Another spiritual journey of transformation began. We go through phases of transformation. It constantly goes. It don't end. You're constantly changing. And I was changing. I'm still changing. Right now, Allah has been speaking to me about covering my face. Like really taking it to the next level of closeness. Being covered fully like this as a Muslim woman brings you so much closer to Allah. It's a internal spiritual feeling that I just cannot describe, that I feel. Allah has been just tugging at me. This is how I know I'm on the right path. This is how I know I'm supposed to be a Muslim. This is how I know I'm headed in the right direction. With that being said, y'all, we already going to 40 minutes. I'm trying to unpack my story, my testimony. So much has happened, y'all. So much is still happening. The spirit world is real. Allah is real and it's beautiful. Being a Muslim is the greatest gift that has ever happened to me in my life. Assalamu alaikum, my sisters. Dare to be different. Again, come with an open heart and an open mind to receive all that I have for you. To be a part of my journey, to be a part of my testimony, to be a part of my story. Because I bet you, I guarantee you, some of the things that I will share on Dare to Be Different is going to resonate with you. I'm sorry that sometimes me telling my testimony, it may not make sense. And I'm trying to make it make sense and collect my thoughts. But so much has happened, y'all. And I'm going to leave it on that note. I'll see you next time. Peace.